United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the pledge to the Texas flag.
I, the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
If you would, just join with me while you're still standing for a moment of silence. We don't have the plates and everything set up for the missing man, but for POWs and MIAs, if you don't mind, let's pay them a little homage. There's 83,000 that are still missing. Keep in mind, 72,000 of those are from World War II. Thank you. Those 72,000, also keep in mind, as Don's one of those World War II veterans, we're losing them fast. So let's do what we can. Try to make sure we accommodate any way we can. Thanks for coming today. If you all have a seat and get ready. I'm kind of subbing in for Carl, but we do have a program today, and that's going to be Mr. Logan Burnett, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Is going to tell us about his story, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I've already pulled a bunch of that information out of him, and it's boring as hell.
I'm going to stretch it out as long as possible.
But I will turn it over to you, Logan, and let you take.
Give it over to PK, run through introduction real quick, sign up.
Yes,
Just a few sign-up sheets. Did you want to say anything for July 4th stuff or for flag plan? Did you want to, Kelly? Did you want to pick up flag plan?
No, you can go for it.
All right. So we have Metroport Veterans Association. We have a sign-up sheet right here on this table for flag planting here in Trophy Club for the July 4th celebration. If you haven't been to July 4th then here in Trophy Club, it's probably one of the best in the country from what they do for the size of the town, especially. And before you know it, flags line every street in the town. And before you know it, they're like it never happened. But everybody gets designated certain parts of the town to line American flags every 16 to 20 feet, something like that. So we've got that. Planning's kind of ongoing for that right now. Other than that, somebody posted in the group today up in Denton the Texas the Texas Veterans. What is it?
Texas Women's Veterans.
Yes, the museum. They're having the Women's Association. They're doing this new. They're launching a new dedication specifically to women veterans in the state. And I believe that's most of the day-to-day in Denton. Other than that, all good. Pro has a safe flight home.
Okay, just before we actually get Logan started, I'd like to go around the room real quick and if you introduce yourself and tell us what you did in the military, or if you're not in the military, that's fine too. Kathy.
Kathy Jones, Army, 8797, Signal Corps.
Signal.
Chad Berry, United States Marine Corps, Infantry, 2008-2012.
Greg Barber, C-141 pilot, 72 to 88.
Blake Barber, and I'm the captain.
Hello everyone, my name is Tommy Rhodes Jr. I joined in the year 2002, served until 2017, spent 2 years at beautiful Cannon Air Force Base, working with Reaper Group. Thank you.
Welcome.
Learning Group, survivor, tired, and retired.
What's your name? What's your name?
My name?
Russ Kinsey, Marine Corps and Army. I can't even recognize you, Russ. Last time we got together, you were on a big hobnail bike.
Well, I was on a bike.
Yeah. This way.
Sonia Castillo was in the Army from 2002 to 2011.
Emily Laddish, nurse practitioner, Air Force.
Colonel, right?
Yes, sir.
Life support.
Scott Smith, retired Major Wilson Reserve, flew the A-10 for 15 years and
There you go.
Kelly Patriot, I did not serve, so thank you all for serving.
Hi, David Pacheco. I'm proud to have one of the odd careers, 1971 to 2006. 16 years enlisted, 19 years commissioned. You might have refueled one of your planes at Tar Home Air Base. You flew in, because I was Tar Home from 73 to 75.
I was at McGuire, named after John P. McGuire, who was a P-38 pilot. Hardware Shells, U.S. Army, 1970-73. Plus my time in Germany.
I did not serve on Cleveland Pardon. Yes. Skip.
Skip Excellent, Army, 66 to 68, and infantry OCS, and then branch transferred into the Andrew Corps. PK, spent time with 2nd Ranger Battalion from 2007 to 2011, and I've been involved with GallantFew ever since its inception. Yeah, I've known Carl that long.
Logan, Burnett, U.S. Army, Signal Corps as well. And I've been with GallantFew. I've known about it since 2018. As of May, I'm the new Director of Development for GallantFew. So proud to be a part of the team.
And I'm out of Georgia, subbing in for Carl, Captain, United States Army, 68 through 73, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, we worked there. And sir, over to you.
My name is Matthew Little, 21 years in the Marine Corps. I just retired about 2 weeks ago, so.
Welcome, all of you, and thank you for your service. And with that, I think we'll defer to Logan and hear a little more about your story.
Good. Logan Burnett again, retired sergeant, Purple Heart recipient. Grab this real quick.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
So,
I'll switch over yours. This is your intro.
yeah, just short bio listed on it. I'm going to give you the long version.
Okay, let me give you a step in here. Okay, there you go.
So it's a FIDO story, F-I-D-O. It's tattooed on my leg. It's pretty obvious. Something I got done when I was still in the wheelchair. Stands for forget it, drive longer. Life happens. We have ups, we have downs. Doubled up, driving on with full. This is the same bio. Army veteran of 7 years. I enlisted in 2006 after a friend of mine was killed in Iraq. He was supposed to be on for home. He volunteered to stay. And we have Isaiah 6:8. This is what's on my KIA bracelet. It's something I hold dear who go for us here on my SMD. It's the ultimate volunteer that we all get when we join. Corporal David Unger, best friend growing up. Can't tell you how many times we got in trouble. I can tell you it was a lot more than I could count. But I was in college at University of Kansas, and I got a phone call while I was bartending one night that Corporal Unger had been killed by 19 bucks. Digging a little deeper after speaking with his mom, found out that he had volunteered to let another soldier take his place on rotation and come home during terminal leave or during leave. He stayed back so his buddy could be there for the birth of his child. And while he was waiting for his turn to come up for rotation to get out of Iraq, he was hit by an EFP, IED, bottom of the arm, killed everybody there. That moment, getting that phone call, I can still remember the sights and smells and sound going on around me. A trash bar with stale beer smell everywhere. hearing that David had died and knowing that he had left behind Gage, his son, and his wife, I knew that it was my turn to step up to the plate and do my duty. So he is the reason I joined, and I still hold that tight every day. In fact, I talked to his mom before I even came up here this morning. So now something pretty unique. I got the opportunity to do. My dad retired 32 years. Was Army, switched over to U.S. Public Health Service eventually. When I enlisted, we got permission and maps from the commanding officer from my father to swear me in the U.S. Army. So that is a picture of him and me standing there. Everybody else had already gone through their swearing process, and I said, like, he's the one that signed my enlistment paper right there. So that led me to Fort Benning on the infantry. One of my favorite places, still miss it every day. BK may disagree, but I had a blast. 30th AG reception is your introduction to Fort Benning. It is the most boring time you will have in the military. You will sleep in places you didn't even think were possible to sleep at. So you'll walk through lines of hallways and get shots in your arms that you don't even know what's going in the end. But in the end, you end up becoming a soldier that you really still need. There's me right in the center. A whole lot skinnier and a little bit mean looking, but that was Charlie 347 outside of Rouge Barracks, Sand Hill, Fort Benning. He said, I had time in my life there. The hardest part was just not laughing with the drill sergeant. I did more push-ups because I would laugh instead of being off and getting gig for it. So, had a blast. Miss it every day for sure. 3 different of us, myself, my father, after swearing me in, came to my graduation at Fort Benning. My brother had flown over from Spain where he was stationed in NATO. Both of us had the same MOS, so he definitely led me and helped guide my career throughout my time in service. Left Fort Benning. I think holdover was about 3 days, but I had a buddy of mine who was graduated OCS at Benning and went through airborne school. He was a second lieutenant, so we got permission to have my brother, quote unquote, escort me to AIT. So I had second lieutenant Tim Wheeler put me in his truck, and we went off the post and finally got a little reprieve from basic training and had an extra day overnight to get my goods in order and have a good time before I reported in at Fort Gordon. Spent 32 weeks at Fort Gordon going through 25 Bravo School, information system analyst, cross-trained as a 25 uniform radio operator, and served that throughout my entire career. Right after Fort Gordon, I was in reserves. I reported initially to, it was in Wichita, Kansas. I was only with them a very brief time because we immediately went to launch school, Germany, which was one of the most humbling experiences and my first introduction to actual wounded combat veterans. There is a blue light that goes off in the hallways of Launchville Hospital, and a PA announcement comes over the intercom every time we have a bus pull up and the emergency will drop, and everybody stops what they're doing. Doesn't matter your job, you work in the emergency room, and you help unload those troops who are coming over from Afghanistan and Iraq. And like I said, the most humbling experience I could possibly have been through. You're helping guys who've been blown up, who've been burned, who've been shot, and you're unloading them, and you're trying to keep their spirits up while keeping your own up. But it's a very gracious time to be there. So after launch school, Regional Medical Center, came back, assigned to the 1908 Medical Detachment that I eventually would be called to deploy with. I call it from going from Germany to the desert, but not the desert you might think. It's in the middle of Wisconsin. So they signed their Baghdad, Fallujah, Mosul. Obviously, that is in the middle of Wisconsin. We went through truck driving school and then through another communications school that was training in. Again, from Germany to the desert, I was responsible and managed all the FPCV2 Blue Force tracker systems for the unit. I got really good at the Blue Force tracker system. It's your screen system that's in your Humvee or your Bradley or your Striker, and allows you to see where your current situation is, where your enemy combatants are, and where your friendly forces are. I was able to actually hook up Xbox to one, and had a lot of guys that asked me to do that. I hooked up an Xbox to one and we were playing Call of Duty while driving through Conway House. Kind of silly, but kind of fun at the same time. I was responsible for all SIPR and Burnett communications coming in and out of the unit in preparation for deployment, which actually leads to WLC. Went through, it used to be BLDC, Platoon Leadership Development Course. It changed into Warrior Leadership Course. Another odd duty station that I got sent to for school, Camp Ashland, Nebraska, right there on the river in the middle of winter time. It's not a fun place to be, but you know, we accomplished what we were sent there for. It was a good time overall. Definitely taught you a lot of teamwork, leadership skills, running a unit, platoon size unit, and maintaining that unit and their fitness. Some more extra training we went through at WLC, rollover training. That's another blast, and they like to record that on camera while you're going through it so you can see yourself being tossed upside down and spun around. Graduated WLC and immediately volunteered for upcoming deployment. We were scheduled the 1908 Medical Detachment. We were Rangers too, but we were Brand Rangers. We were there as a mental health unit to support PTSD and veterans before they got it. So we volunteered for deployment, very small, 42 of us. We're deploying to Iraq, and we joined up with our sister unit from Fort Lewis, the 467 Medical Detachment, when we headed out to Fort Hood. We first stopped at Fort Irwin, California, and Fort Hunter, Lincoln, for pre-road training, vaccinations, all that good stuff, where we did more convoy ops, and I messed with some more Blue Force tracking systems. Fort Hood. I showed up at Fort Hood November 4th, 2009 in the middle of the night. My unit, we drove down the bus from Wichita, Kansas, unloaded, got loaded up into the barracks, crashed out. And the next day we had SRP, which is our medical readiness for deployment. So your final audio checks, your visuals, your dental, make sure you're good to go health-wise, and then final sign off by a doctor, making sure all your medical records are in the proper order. At about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Army Major Nadal Malik Hassan stood up in the corner of a room that was open on one end, but about this size. Stood up in the corner behind a folding table and screamed Allah Akbar, began shooting at us. We would later come to find out that he had been in connection with Pakistani and Al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki. He had been emailing him for over a year, asking for what the proper way was for him to cheat out U.S. soldiers while being in uniform himself. Some things that weren't discussed or opened up to the public that later on became known as the Webster Commission investigation, were the actual emails that he was sending back and forth, asking for support from Al-Qaeda to commit his jihad mission. So, there's a lot of writing there. I'm not going to go through every single thing. There were 32 of us wounded. Everybody reports different numbers. I've done so many news outlet interviews that everything's different with each one. There were 32 wounded, and there were 14 killed. Most places will say 13 killed. There was a gal that was 6 months pregnant who was shot right in her stomach, screaming, my baby, my baby. And I consider that a casualty. So, for those who don't, I apologize, but that's to me a sacrifice. Initial reports, like I said, different scenarios. At one point, there was something going on in the news that there were 3 active shooters, then there were 2. Base got locked down, cell phone towers got jammed, there was no communication in or out. But the entire installation was on high alert. Now, there were 2 MPs who responded to the shooting, and one of the hardest parts of the trial when I testified against Hassan in his court-martial was watching the dash cam footage of those MPs. And would later come to help the DOD rewrite their active threat or active shooter threat response program. Those MPs were very young, very new to their job and role, and saw a major in uniform and thought it was training center. So it took another 10 minutes before the federal police, Sergeant Kim Munley and Sergeant Mark Todd, showed up, who actually engaged the shooter and put him down. Well, that one didn't load up, but if you Google my name and type in Fort Hood, and you go to CNN's link, there's a video interview where a few days after the shooting, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm really in a big fog of mind and couldn't really articulate what I wanted to, but at the time it was important that I at least tell my story, and it still is today. If one person can learn how to respond to an active shooter threat and save one life, it's a moral. Oh, there it is. Good look. God, that guy's got a big face. Good looking guy. So, the next slide, I had a video link to, but because I'm on Wi-Fi here, it's going to be a picture. I will warn you, it is inside the building. It was from somebody's cell phone. It is inside building 2003. There are bodies of my phone's holograms on the floor. So if it's something that may bug you, I just want to give you a full warning, okay? Those killed in the attack, I'm going to turn my back and read these names out loud. They deserve that respect. Michael Grant Taylor, 62, civilian assistant, retired chief warrant officer. Roberto Eduardo Torriego, 52, major. Justin Michael DeCrow, 32, staff sergeant. John D. Gaffney, 56, captain. Frederick Green, 29, specialist. Jason B. Hunt, 22, specialist. Amy Sue Kruger, 29, sergeant. Aaron Thomas Melka, 19 years old, PFC. Michael S. Pearson, 22, private first class. Russell Gilbert Sager, 51, captain. Francesca Velez, 21, private first class. Juanita L. Warner, 55, lieutenant colonel. Tom C. Zong, 23, private first class. These are the men and women that saved my life that day. Captain John Gaffney took the last round out of the first magazine to his neck. He and I were the only 2 standing at the time in the room. He was rushing the shooter with a folding chair. I was rushing the shooter with a folding table and falling over. For some reason, Hassan was pointing at me, shifted his focus at the last minute to Captain Gaffney and shot him. That gave me time to throw the table. By the time I let go, Hassan had reloaded his second magazine, started firing directly at me, shot me on the table. Again, these are the faces of the men and women that gave everything up there. Captain Gaffney was like a dad to me, and definitely gave his life for mine. A little bit of who I was before and after. Still a beautiful gentleman. I'm humble too, don't worry. But it's a significant change that happened, and of course, the trauma causes that to anybody, and any trauma can cause that. PTS is not something that's just military only, but it's something that will change you for the rest of your life. The key to overcoming is realizing you'll never be who you were, but you will be great regardless, as long as you drive forward. Dog and Pony Show, that's what I like to call it. So after the shooting, everybody who was anybody in the military, Joint Chief of Staffs, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army, some people I had no clue who they were. I just woke up with their business card and coin next to my table in the hospital. I remember at one point telling everyone that Mullen had a headache and to basically screw off. So that was off of the morphine drip, and 2 days after the shooting before I went into a coma. But that's me in a wheelchair, my brother overnighted back from NATO, duty station in Spain to be there. And that is my first wife, who I tell you, she was a CNA at the time and became my caregiver during 29 surgeries. Really helped me become functional again, helped get me out of the wheelchair, helped me recover. She was an amazing woman. The wounded, I'll be brief with this. Major Randy Moyer, Captain Dorothy First, Second Lieutenant Brandon Mason, Chief Warrant Officer Christopher Wardle, Staff Sergeant Michael Davis, Staff Sergeant Alvin Howard, Staff Sergeant Eric Jackson, Staff Sergeant Sean Manning, Staff Sergeant Paul Martin, Staff Sergeant Joy Clark, Staff Sergeant Juan Lamb, Staff Sergeant Miguel Valiva, Staff Sergeant Patrick Strickland, and pause there. I did not know it was a shooting for real. I thought it was training when it first started, until his wife and Staff Sergeant Ziegler was brain matter off my face. At which point I realized what was going on. He's still alive today. He's functional. He gets keynote speaking engagements all the time. Raising a beautiful baby boy. Small miracle. Nothing thankful for. Sergeant Alonzo Lunsford, Corporal Nathan Hewitt, Specialist Garrett Torkelson, Specialist Logan Burnett, Specialist Danny Roscoe, Specialist Greg Moxley, Specialist John Pagel, Specialist James Armstrong, EFC Mike Engel, EFC Jonathan Sims, Private Joseph Foster, Private Nachi Hall, Private Amber Gavin, and the Freedom Medal was awarded to Kimberly Munley. That was the female sergeant with the federal police that showed up. She was actually shot in the exact same locations I was. First bullet came in my left hip, severed my femoral nerve. Second bullet, I was covering up my head while low crawling to a cubicle next to me. Shot me through the elbow. That bullet spun all the way up my bicep and right outside my heart. And the last bullet, after being shot in the arm, my arm was kind of dragging behind me. The last bullet came through my hand and bounced through, severing everything but the skin on the outside of my hand. Crawled into the cubicle next to me. Had two privates under the desk that were freaking out. Didn't know what was going on. Most of us didn't know what was going on. They saw my pinky and the blood everywhere on my ACU uniform, and told me I'd been shot. I told them I know. Kind of obvious, I feel it. And at which point I saw my pinky, so I used the Velcro strap, my wrist strap on my ACU jacket. I pulled it down, grabbed my pinky up to my hand. Told the two soldiers under the desk that we needed to get the hell out of there. That staying in that building was not an option. They helped me to my feet. I didn't know that I couldn't walk at the time. I was keeping the two soldiers I was keeping my body between the shooter and these two soldiers. So after they helped me up, I peeked out the cubicle, looked around to see what direction the shooter was firing. He had turned towards the back door where soldiers were running out. At which point I grabbed the two privates. I said, run out the front door, do not stop, look back. Just keep going until you find somebody to go. So we take off. Little did I know my femoral nerve was severed. I wasn't able to run, so they went and they made it, thankfully. I made it half a step and I fell on my face. So I got to crawl out of the building, which I blessed to still be here. Crawled out over some glass and some friends, up a little 5-foot berm, and was pulled into the building parallel to 2003 by a staff sergeant. Immediately began triage on me, and started to bleed. So after a few different IVs on my way to the hospital, I had blown pretty much all my blood out. Any IV they tried to put in was blown in vein. I remember waking up in and out of blacking out in the ambulance, and the EMT looked at me and goes, he's got a power drill in his hand, and he goes, I've got to do a bone IV. And I look at him like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, I've got to drill this into your femur. And I said, my eyes got big for a second. I said, do you have to? And he goes, well, yeah, we have to. And as soon as he hit scan, I blacked back out. So I came to again in the OR right before surgery. Had an external laparotomy. Pulled out most of my lower intestine, part of my alien colon. Just pulled everything out of you, set it next to you. Pick out the holes, stitch them up, and take the shrapnel out that they can. Then they put it all back in you, staple you shut, fill you up with gas. So when I woke up, I was even bigger boy than I am now. And just filled up with this gas. You kind of feel your body resetting them into shape. It took about 3 weeks, and then I was medevac to AMC, where I spent 2 years learning how to walk. Some things you may not know about the Fort Hood shooting that I think everybody should know. Some people have done the research on that. The Department of Defense did miss several opportunities to reprimand and discharge Major Nadal for his growing and surprisingly open embrace of violent Islamic extremism. The FBI also neglected to investigate it thoroughly after it learned that Hassan, a member of U.S. Armed Forces, was communicating with suspected terrorists, already the subject of a major FBI counterterrorism investigation. They're referencing those emails to him on outline. Now, I love my army, I love my country, but this is a lesson that we have to learn from and overcome so that it doesn't happen again. Homegrown terrorism is real, and it's our duty as patriots, it's our duty as veterans and service members to report those things and not use political correctness as a dodgy reason not to. The Joint Terrorism Task Force out of Washington only spent 4 hours investigating Nadal Hassan after realizing he was emailing number 2 in command for Al Qaeda. They were not sharing information with the Department of Defense. That's where they came into play. Homeland Security and CIA also had information on it, none of which was being shared with other intelligence agencies. Had that happened, it would have led to the prevention of what happened if they could. Again, it's just stating there's evidence that wasn't shared. A lot of boring stuff. Fast forward, took 6 years and a lot of fighting in Congress and a lot of fighting our president at the time to have it declared a terrorist attack. For years it was known as workplace violence. However, after the public found out about those emails, after the public found out that he had presented a thesis statement at Walter Reed on suicide bombing not being against the Geneva Convention, everything came to light, everything was changed, and it was declared a terrorist attack. We were awarded Purple Hearts. That's April 10, 2015, 3rd Corps. And the pictures on each side at the top are the memorial that they built in Killeen, Texas, just off the coast, to honor those who died that day. So, my transition and what GallantFew does is supports the transition of veterans. I wish I had made GallantFew when I got out. I'm thankful that I'm there in my life now to be a part of it. But these are some Facebook posts that I actually cut off online that kind of share my mindset from when I was going through things post-shooting, prior to getting out. You know, up top we've got August 30, 2010, so almost a year after the shooting. I was working to get out where I could walk without a cane. I wanted to get off taking pain meds every day. Wanted to be found fit for duty. Unfortunately, I never would. And I wanted to complete the Baton Death March. Still on my bucket list, I'll get there. But 2010, November 10th, so the day after the 1 year anniversary, definitely a sleepless night for me. It wasn't the only sleepless night. Sent a lot of prayers up. October 23rd, 2010, again, another 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. I'm just as stressed out as I was Monday morning. That's it. You know, I completely took everything on myself. I was dealing with PTSD, survivor's guilt, depression, self-medication, over-medication from the Army. At one point I was on fentanyl and Dilaudid at the same time. It took 8 years after the shooting before I would actually get completely off all pain medication. I'm blessed to be clean and sober today. Very grateful thing, very humbling thing. But I was tired. I'll tell you again, I'm tired in every way, shape, or form. It felt like every day I would start climbing a mountain, and then each morning, or each sleepless night would just set me right back to the bottom of it. Service members transition out of the service can be a whirlwind of fear, self-doubt, pain, betrayal, loss, confusion, or sleepless nights, self-destruction, self-medication. The Army, military teaches us how to drink pretty well. Pretty easy to turn to that when you're lost, when you're confused. So on March 1st, I found out I was getting orders to finally be done with my medical work. My medical retirement was going to be complete. I'll be discharged, retired from the Army. So I told Uncle Sam on Facebook, it's been real, it's been fun. It hasn't been real fun all the time. It was definitely an honor to serve. If I could go back, I'd still be in today. Been over 3 years before that shooting. I was angry, I was mad, I was furious. The military kept us waiting. Furious that I had no direction, confused and lost. All these feelings set in, and on top of that, you still had the survivor's guilt, you still had the depression, you still had the why was he killed, why was not. So it took, and still takes every day, a lot of work to get past those things. But it is an everyday thing, and if I didn't carry them with me every day, I wouldn't be honoring their memory. If I don't live every day to the fullest, I'm also not honoring their memory. Again, just to focus on the transitional issues I battled, that lack of purpose, feeling of alone, depression, anxiety, self-medication, self-doubt. I love this photo, just to share with you real quick. It's from an artist, who's a famous graffiti artist named Banksy. Does a lot of great work, but it's hanging up miles of the house. Post-military, I've battled a lot of mental health issues, a lot of regular health issues. I still have bullets and shrapnel left in to take out. So I think I've had 6 surgeries since I've been out of the service. Been through 3 divorces. Definitely not one of those facts I'm certainly proud of, but it is what it is. My mental health issues led to me not being very emotionally available, and so I struggled with it for a long time. Medication issues, back to that over-medication from the military. Spent 6 months trying to get the VA to put me in an inpatient program to get me off of the fentanyl and Dilaudid. They did not have beds available where I was at, so I got online and I Googled how to detox off of heroin. And I did it myself at home over a 3-week period. I thought I was going to die every day. I felt my bones literally on fire. But I woke up on the 18th day, I believe. Russ and I just talked about this the other day at breakfast with him. I woke up on the 18th day at about 6 a.m. The sun was cresting. And my dog at the time, Gunner, came up and I took him for a walk. Watched the sun come up and I felt great. I haven't been back to pain meds since. I've also got to drink into it once every now and then. So it's important to manage those things, but I eventually found a career in telecommunications. I went through the Institute of Military and Veteran Families through Syracuse University through the project management program. Led me to a career with radio frequency companies, RF, Telecom, Verizon, Nokia, AT&T. I bounced from contract to contract. It was good money, but it was the most unfulfilling work I think I've done. It's welcome to corporate America 101. I was in a suit and tie every day, so I didn't get to show off my great tattoos. I'm a little bummed about that, but kept it professional, and I was able to take care of my family eventually. Leads me to when I met the GallantFew. So Vet Expo in 2018, I was part of another nonprofit called Hero Sports out of San Antonio, which was founded by my physical therapist, who taught me how to walk. So I felt like I owed it to him to give back, so I helped that nonprofit for a while. Carl invited us up to the Vet Expo. And I remember coming in and meeting him and thinking, I'm not a ranger, I do not fit in here. I really did. I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to work radio. you guys need all in the timeline, I got it. But I wasn't a ranger, and so at first I filled out a place, and Carl walked up to me and shook my hand. And he asked me a little bit of my story, I gave it to him, and he thanked me for my service. That was humbling. That's what he did, why he may not have ever seen actual combat. To be a ranger, to be in any of the tier level groups, I hold the highest regard for you guys. If you're going to be a door kicker, be the best door kicker you can do. So if you need a radio guy, it's the best radio guy you can find. Or if you want to play Call of Duty and you're hungry, we can make that happen too. So that leads to the end of my speech, guys. So Fido, again, tattooed on my leg, engraved in my heart and soul forever. It is forget it, drive on. There's a little more explicative word there that we could throw in at the beginning. For conversation's sake, I've used forgive it, drive on too, to go more past some of the things I've battled. But it is a Fido story. It's a Fido life. And with the Fido mindset, you're not focused on the past as much. You're always driving forward. You're always moving in that positive direction. The company I started right after 2018, meeting Carl, was Wave the Brain. Allowed me to do some wood burn flags, some gun safes, some coffee tables, really cool things. And that's part of my outlet. Behind a computer all day, or I'm in meetings and phone calls, so when I can get out and be physical and be interacting with something like working with my hands, it's a hobby that I turned into a successful company. Finally, finding my home at GallantFew. This is the last slide, guys, I promise. April 7th, Carl posted this on Facebook. I think he had maybe 30 seconds before I was on the phone with him, saying my resume is in your email box. But he posted they were looking for a new DFW area development director. I knew what GallantFew provided, and I immediately did an asthma check again. I hadn't done since 2018. Felt where I was at, saw the progress and growth from it, and knew that if I could make a career out of continuing to serve those who serve us, that's where I belong. That's why I'm still here. So I'll spend the rest of my life doing that. And I appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for coming out.